Welcome to the Mystic Detectives podcast, where we seek to unlock the wonders of the unknown. I'm one of your hosts, Crystal Miller.
And I'm your other host, Andrea Marziano.
Hey, Andrea, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing all right. I'm happy to say that I was able to touch my right toes yesterday, which is a big step for me since I have so much scar tissue in my hip.
That's awesome. I know how valuable physical therapy can be. And as I'm 2 years out of my hip replacement, I have come to the point where actually I'm starting to do the things I want to do. And that's been really exciting. I was able to, as you know, that my partner Max and I went on a big trip, and I was able to walk 5.5 miles one day, and
Wow.
I felt great. I was tired the next day. I think it's more conditioning than surgery, but it was still really awesome. And our road trip was great. And we have an electric vehicle that we learned how to charge so that we got where we wanted to go. And it took longer because we had to stop and charge. And it was about the intervals that we wanted the bathroom. However, when we stop and go to the bathroom normally, we don't wait 30 or so minutes. So we just stopped and did it. So it was fun. It was a really good time. And we had summer experiences while we were out because we were in Arizona and Nevada,
Mhm.
Las Vegas area. And then we came home, and now the high today will be, I think, 50. And
Yikes.
so I got lulled into the possibility of it being summer at our house too. However, it is not in the Pacific Northwest yet,
Yeah.
and but it's coming. And I was so excited because I wanted to plant and do the things. And Max said, "Yeah, it's going to freeze tonight." No,
Yeah. Yeah.
not exactly planting time. The rule, as you might remember from Utah as well, is the same here, is don't plant anything until after Mother's Day. Really, don't,
Yeah.
because you'll
Yeah.
replant it. But it gets this time of year, especially when the sun starts shining out here, it gets really tempting to just plant something. And I've seen a lot of my friends saying, "I planted this and I planted that." And I'm like, "No, it's too early."
Tor, my second to youngest child, has already planted their garden, and I warned them. I said, at the very least, don't plant your tomatoes. I know that a frost will destroy your tomatoes. And then I asked them if they had consulted the farmer's almanac. And of course they looked at me like, what the hell are you
What?
talking about? So I pulled up the digital farmer's almanac and showed it to them. And sure enough, it was, predicting still frosts, and then we had a freeze a couple of days afterward. They feel like their plants survived it. We'll see. I don't know, but yeah, there's some people that just want to rush the rush the process, and who knows? Maybe Torrance plants will survive and it'll all be wonderful, and we'll have a cornucopia of beautiful harvest. But who knows?
Yeah, it is very tempting once the sun starts coming out to
Yeah,
believe I call it the fake summer,
yeah.
because there's usually a couple of weeks ago, well, before we went on our trip, it was in the 70s here,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
that's really unusual. And so, but that's our summer temperature. We don't usually get
Hmm.
super hot. And so I was enjoying the fake summer, but we're back to spring,
Yeah,
which is not always warm. So anyway, it's fun though to
that's
experience
fun.
nature in all its glory.
That's true. Well, I also went to the medieval fair, not this Saturday, but the Saturday before, and it is a little one. Just, I mean, there were probably a total of 1,000 people there. But
Wow.
I went with Torin and Cedar, and that was a lot of fun. Um, not
Did you
but
get a turkey egg? I mean, leg?
no, I didn't, because last time we got one, it was a waste of money because we only ate like a third of it, so I just didn't want to.
Mm. Man, I can snarf that whole baby down. I love turkey legs. I When we were in California, we went to there was a huge Renaissance fair, and, when we would go, that would be the only thing I'd buy is the turkey leg, and I would eat the whole thing myself, and I
That's
loved
funny.
it.
We did get funnel cakes and fresh squeezed lemonade though, so that was pretty good.
Yeah, that is good.
Yeah,
Nice. Yeah, that sort of thing will start picking up as the season begins, isn't it? And where there's the carnivals
definitely,
and such. So we get to
definitely.
enjoy the carnival food.
And it's funny because, just speaking of you walking 5.5 miles, um, I walked 1,700 steps, and I was like, "Wow, I'm
Woo!
amazing!" because I haven't been able to walk like 5 steps for so
Yes, our
long.
perspective could certainly change.
Definitely,
And as my
definitely.
son said, or excuse me, my brother said, "We must be old because all we're doing is talking about our health concerns." And I'm like, "Yeah,
All right.
yeah, I think once we're 40, that's what goes on in our minds. How do we stay healthy? How do we recover from whatever it is we've gotten
No
and move on from
kidding, no
there?"
kidding.
Yeah. So what's on the plate for today?
I know that we kind of briefly mentioned it in our crystal healing podcast, but I thought that we could kind of take a deeper dive into the chakras.
Great.
I mean, we can start with just kind of listing. I'm just listing what the chakras are. This we did do in the last in the crystal healing podcast, but um, I'll just kind of go down the list of what they are and kind of what they represent. Further into this podcast, we'll kind of talk about some of the crystals and essential oils that can be associated with the chakras. Um, but let's start with just what they are. Chakras are basically locations in our body. They're really kind of affiliated with the spine, I would say.
Well, the way I understand chakras is that there are known as our energy centers in a different part of our bodies. And I've heard them described as spinning wheels. Some people imagine them actually spinning. I don't know if there's an energetic point to that, but I think sometimes it seems like it. So when our chakras are out of balance or somehow not working properly, people talk about the rotation, but they work as the energy centers along the spine, and they come from the crown of the head to the base of the spine. And each chakra corresponds with a certain type of physical, emotional, and spiritual aspect of our well being. That's how I understand it. Do you have anything else that you've heard?
No, that's a pretty good explanation. The other thing that I think that I'd like to point out is that chakras have been used for thousands of years, or believed in for thousands of years, and used in healing and energy healing and spiritual healing and things like that. And so, what I'd like to do first is just kind of explain which what the chakras are, and then we can kind of go a little bit more into what they represent, and how they can be used in harmony with other things like that. So
That's awesome. You know what? If you just hold for just one moment, what came to my mind all of a sudden is how the treatments for people used to be bleeding, um,
Mhm.
where they would bleed the area they think that was having a problem. Do you think that could have been connected to chakras? That beginning of especially Western medicine, they were stuck in the bleeding thing for quite a long time. I wonder if they were accessing or feeling the problem in a chakra, but didn't know what to do about it.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
that's certainly possible.
it just came to mind, and I thought, "Oh, if they thought they were feeling it or noticing it in a
Bloodletting,
certain
yeah.
area." Yeah, 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 anyway, that just crossed my mind, so I thought that was kind of a possibility. So, go
Yeah.
ahead.
So we have 7 main chakras. Some people will say 8. I typically just speak about the 7 that I'm familiar with. We have our root chakra, which is, of course, at the base of our spine or our tailbone area. And it is all about grounding
Mhm.
and, being being grounded to our earth, being grounded to our circumstances. And, you might ask, what does it mean to be grounded? The way I generally look at it is it's like just having a tether to earth so that we can explore and we can do the things we need to do. But when it's time, to come back um to our everyday life, our the default world, that you may have heard that we always have that tether and we can come back and find ourselves grounded again.
I like that description a lot. And when people are doing things and they feel like they're in a deep process, like meditation, or sometimes something like that, where they feel like they've left their body, I like the thought of the grounding or the root chakra being the tether that brings them back. I like that connection because then they can always feel like they can return when they're
Mhm.
ready. I like that connection a lot. And I've heard of it as being part of our stability too. I don't remember you saying stability, but just part of the building block, I guess, is how I look at it too, is to
Mhm.
begin our building there at our root chakra. I really it's so important, and it's really easy for people to get free of their root chakra or
Yeah,
unbalanced in their root chakra if they're too spread out in their activities and things like that, I think.
I totally agree. Then we have the sacral chakra, which is essentially at the level of your hips and your groin area.
Mhm,
And that is where we have our creativity and passion. That is the chakra that is typically associated or affiliated with actual sexual feelings,
mhm,
that sort of thing. But also passion about a topic, or passion about some form of art, or passion about cooking, anything that's, it doesn't have to be sexual passion necessarily.
mhm,
And additionally, we have that creativity. That's where our creativity comes from. And so often we work with artists or performers or people that have their livelihood is creativity, and we help them clear or balance that sacral chakra, and they kind of find that the ideas come flowing again, or the muse or the whatever the case may be, kind of comes flowing again.
mhm. Yeah, yeah, I've heard that a lot, that if a person is bound up in their sacral chakra, that can be huge, and when you consider things that can bind it can be anything from a sexual assault to just a dis-ease from maybe even a traumatic birth experience, or it doesn't
Or
have to represent the sex organs, but it can be something that is in that sort of a space, and it can be pretty significant.
yeah, shame is often held in the sacral chakra.
Mhm. Yeah.
And so that's a big one, I think.
Yeah.
And then we have, moving up, we go to belly button area, and that is our solar plexus chakra, and that is where we find our personal power. So this is where we stand in ourselves, and where we don't let people bowl over us. We represent ourselves well. We stand up for ourselves. And this is another one that can often get in the way of people's just day-to-day lives, their livelihoods, because they've got whatever imbalances in their solar plexus chakra, and are just really not standing in their personal power and allowing themselves to be walked over. Are these are the yes men or the yes women, not to be
Mhm.
gendered, yes people.
That's right, and what's interesting too is we get to remember that they can go the other way too. They can do too far in any of
Yes,
these, uh, imbalances. It can be too strong or too little, and
definitely
I
true.
think sometimes we look at the too low, but the too high or too imbalanced on that direction can be as difficult to deal with as the too low.
I never really thought of it until you said that, but I think for me personally, I can only speak for myself. I think that that's because it's the people on the quote unquote too low side that come to us for help.
Yeah,
I can't think of any time I've, done any sort of chakra work with somebody that was in a too high uh uh realm or spinning, if you will.
yeah. Well, and I get that too because I feel like especially in the solar plexus chakra, if they're too high, they don't think they need anything. So
Exactly.
I wonder if the people that as a general wild overstatement in these lower chakras, especially if they're too strong in their chakras, these are my guess, and just speaking off the cuff here, maybe the people that are narcissists and things like that,
Yeah.
who just think that they've got it all, and
Yeah.
they're using it maybe even as a misuse of their personal powers, especially in the solar plexus, and probably sacral, because they may be
Yeah.
the same people who do things that hurt
Who
other
are
people.
Yeah, who don't necessarily wait for informed consent or something.
Mhm. Right.
Um and also ego falls into the kind of falls into well, mostly falls into the solar plexus, but I think you could
Mhm.
also say it falls into the sacral chakra.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
Basically the lies you tell yourself about yourself. And
Yep.
sometimes the lies are positive too. I'm not saying that they're, the but it's just, yeah, it's just
It's just an imbalance, one
yeah, it's
where
just the inauthentic you.
yeah, I get you. Okay, cool. That's awesome. What else do you have?
Um, yeah, next we have the heart chakra, and we know that around the world the heart has been associated with love and compassion. And so you know this our heart chakra is very much where we find the feelings of love for a partner, maybe love for a child, as well as compassion. Things. This is kind of where you find your charitable self. And this is another one that tends to get out of balance, to where people themselves lose that feeling of being loved. And so that's kind of a lower imbalance. A higher one would probably be somebody like, well, is just really in their ego, I think. While the ego belongs in the solar plexus, I think it can be I think it can, what's the word I'm looking for? When you like blow on fire. What's that word?
The
It-
stir the flames or
yeah, exactly. It can be
stoke the flames or something?
stoked. Yes, it can be
Mhm.
stoked. And
Yeah.
so when I see that, and again, I've never seen it in practice, I just, will see it around the world, around my grocery store, whatever. Um,
Mhm.
it's always very, very closed off. Oh, even though the heart chakra is typically very open, and that's kind of its purpose and its natural state. I find that, well, actually, now that I'm thinking about it, there are, for me, what I've seen, there are actually genuinely two different kinds of closed off. There's the closed off that we'll call the higher imbalance, and that's the like, I'm better than you, stay away.
Mhm.
And then there's the closed off that's kind of the lower imbalance, and that's like the I don't deserve love.
Right. Right.
And so go ahead.
I was going to say, do you think that people who maybe are on the autism spectrum because they're unable a lot of times to be able to be empathetic, do you think that this is maybe one of the areas? Because I think of the heart chakra as part of empathy as well.
Hmm.
And I wonder if it's something that might be out of balance for people who are on the spectrum.
I don't know. I've never thought about it.
I hadn't either until just now, and it seemed like that could be something because I mean, I think we all understand that autism spectrum is actually a diagnosable thing, but I also believe that our bodies aren't just one piece at a time, that they work together as a whole. So I wonder, I've never worked on anyone specifically for spectrum type issues, and it just occurs to me that that might be a strong point to begin with.
I have three kids on
Good.
the spectrum, and that would be an interesting thing to ask my kids. And of course, my kids don't represent everybody on the spectrum. I understand
You
that.
just happen to
But
know them.
also, yeah, and also as a disclaimer, we're not implying by any stretch that there's something wrong with people on the spectrum.
Mm-mm.
Um, they just have a different life experience, and perhaps some chakra balancing could make interacting in the default world easier for them. That's kind of the, I
Yeah,
think, what you're saying.
yeah, it is totally because no, I mean, I definitely know I personally believe that all of us are on the spectrum somewhere. That's why it's called a spectrum is because people fall in different places on it. And I think we had talked not long ago about in some ways it's sort of the bucket diagnosis right now. And when we say diagnosis, dear listeners, we talk about a diagnosis that is capturing everyone. Oh, you do this, then you must be this. And for a
Right.
long time, things like fibromyalgia, that, oh, you have pain, well, you must have fibromyalgia. And for many years, and it was the thing that if a person complained of pain, especially if they were female, they had fibromyalgia. And it was everyone was diagnosed that way. And I mean, not literally everyone, but a lot of people. And it turned out later that it wasn't all fibromyalgia, but that's where the bucket was. And so right now, because autism is something that we discuss a lot in the general world right now, and ADHD and things like that, they're kind of becoming, okay, well, then you must be this or you must be that. And it's not, as you say, it's not like it's a problem necessarily. I do like the fact that it's being addressed and a focal point so that people are thinking outside the box on how to do education and other things like that. That's why I thought about that, just looking at something I've never even considered until just this moment, that this could be a chakra that may address some of those autistic sort of leanings, if you will.
Sure.
So,
The next one is we move up and it's the throat chakra. And of course, that's all of us have a little divot at the top of our rib cage, and then our throat is above that, and it goes to our shin. And that area is where your throat chakra is. And I know I told a story about my throat chakra in the crystal healing. I think it was in the crystal healing episode.
mhm,
But the throat chakra is for communication and expression. And often people who are imbalanced in their throat chakra will tend to not speak up for themselves, or not speak up for their beliefs, or not speak up for somebody else. Often they will feel that they have no right to speak, that they are their only option is silence. Sometimes, like I feel like I'm demonstrating now, they will trip over their words and not be able to speak plainly. And then I think when you go, since we've kind of been doing this and calling it, a higher imbalance, I think you get people who talk too much, who talk over people,
mhm.
who talk about things with an authority that they don't actually have. I think that's and also on the flip side, again on the quote unquote lower imbalance, people who don't talk about things that they do, that they are experts on, that they do have an expertise on, you
Like the
know.
imposter syndrome, maybe that
Right.
people talk about. Yeah,
Yes.
they may have all the training in the world, but somehow they doubt themselves for whatever reason, and I feel like we've all been in that place at one point or another, being called an expert and going, "What? Me?
Yeah, definitely, definitely.
Oh, I happen to be the expert on that, huh? Okay." And many of us don't. It's hard for us to embrace that, and one of the things about the throat chakra, from what you're saying, there are a lot of cultures that have people in their culture that are asked to just be quiet, don't speak your
Mhm.
truth, don't do those sorts of things. And it's a very challenging place to be. And you and I both listen to a lot of crime podcasts, we'll call
Uh-huh.
them. And there many of them say something along the lines is, "Don't worry about polite. You speak
Mhm,
your truth. If you feel uncomfortable, you speak your truth." And that we have been taught in our society, and I think all societies really, women particularly, to be polite,
mhm,
and that's the goal, and we get in trouble or hurt or in a bad situation, whether it's emotionally or physically, because we aren't speaking our truth and standing up for ourselves, and that's something that finding that balance can be difficult in speaking, because we probably don't wanna be the person that everyone goes, "Oh my gosh, they're talking again." You remember in school when it was always one kid going, "I know, I know." Yeah.
that was me. I know. Everybody would always say, "Does anybody but Crystal have an answer?"
Yeah, could someone else please speak? And yeah, I mean, and I remember in school thinking, "Okay, we've heard from you." And and so could someone else say something? Or when I was teaching, there would be people like that, which they were the only ones and they shouted out answers and never gave anyone else a chance. And so their throat chakra was probably on the imbalance of too strong. And although I have to say sometimes people who do that really are very insecure, which is why they have to prove every moment of the day that they are the best and they know. Even though they don't really feel it, they have to prove it so that they can hide the fact that they're not comfortable.
I think that was my situation. I think I was very insecure and trying to prove myself.
Mhm. Yeah.
But I definitely was called motor mouth more than once,
Yeah.
and, and now I can't get my words out.
They're stuck in there. Well, so what's the next chakra?
The next chakra we have is the third eye chakra. This is right, actually, if you go where your nose ends and you go about a thumbprint above that, that's where you find your third eye. And this is the chakra that we attribute to intuition and insight. So you can kind of call this your guiding chakra, in
Mhm.
that this is where you're gonna, if you're looking for an answer to a problem, and everything you've tried that normally works isn't working, this is where that intuition is going to flow. This is another one that you can relate to the arts and to artistic expression, sorry, whether it be performing arts or digital arts or painting arts or drawing arts or whatever. This is another one where it can really, if you keep that balanced, you can really get more ideas flowing, that sort of thing.
I find for me, for maintaining my third eye, and I look at the third eye and the next one that we'll talk about as when we talk about Maslow and the theory of that there are phase or
The
stages of
hierarchy.
development, yeah, hierarchy. I look at the last two as sort of a hierarchy because I feel like, at least for me, I can't be in the higher zones, if you will, without being clear on some of the others. And maybe that's just me, but that's how I've always experienced it when I'm having struggles in some of the other lower chakras, physically lower chakras. I will not always be able to do, especially with the third eye for my intuition insight, because I'm so worried about all of the other things that are out of balance. Or even if I'm unaware of it, which happens too, then I'm not able to move on to that intuition and insight as well. And I notice as a practitioner of a variety of things that if I'm too out of balance in any of these chakras, I'm not able to receive the guidance from source, universe, whatever we want to call it, as well. And I know for one time I was at a Reiki share, which is when people get together and just practice Reiki on each other. And usually it's all practitioners, but not always. They can bring other people in. I was lying on the table face up and someone put a crystal on my forehead. And as soon as it was set there, I could visualize it. And I said, "Was that a blah, blah, blah?" And she said, "Oh my gosh, did you open your eyes?" I said, "No." But what was interesting to me is that as soon as she said it there, I had a visual image of what that crystal was. And I feel like part of that is because I was very, very uh, in my higher chakras at that moment. And that's really the only time I've had that happen. But it was it was funny because the first time it actually felt like an eye.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was.
I've had a similar experience to that, just having a Reiki treatment, where I
Hmm.
was all sorts of in my shit, if you will, and
Hmm.
the practitioner put a crystal on my third eye, and I was like, "Nope," and just shook it off.
Oh my
Sorry.
gosh. What did it feel too strong or something? What happened?
It was dissonance, like big time dissonance, like,
Wow.
yeah, like, no. Just a big
And
no.
see, and I cannot wear hats because when my third eye is covered, it gives me a headache.
Mhm.
So I can't wear a hat. And
Wow.
I keep
That's wild.
trying, and I just, and also I don't think I look great in them, but even if I felt like I looked really good in them, I'd have to figure out how to do it because I'll put it on and I can wear it for maybe an hour and then I start aching. And
You
then
need to
it
wear
can
a ball cap backwards and have the third eye right in that space
right in
between
the
the
center.
between the sizer and the hat.
Oh my gosh, that's hilarious. I should get a tattoo. That would be super awesome. Okay, and moving on.
And for the last chakra that we're going to cover, we have the crown chakra, and that is found just truly like at the top of your head. Um, when my mother was trying to get me to have good posture, she'd often grab a little bit of hair off from the top of my head, my crown, and pull it tight and say, uh, straighten your posture, straighten your back so that this doesn't hurt or whatever. I don't know what she said, but that's
Oh.
where your crown chakra lies. Is right, just truly right at the top of your head, and that is our spiritual connection. And spiritual connection can be whatever that is to each individual. Of course, there are some people that believe in God. There are some people that are agnostic, meaning they believe in maybe there's a God, maybe there's not. There are people who are atheists. There are people who are simply theists. But spiritual does not necessarily mean religious. And I think that's important to understand. So, I guess if you wanted to look at this from maybe an atheist perspective, well, I'm atheist. So, from my perspective, I see it as a connection to the universe and to the universal net or the collective consciousness, as well as like connection to nature, right? I feel like the crown chakra is where I can really just connect with Gaia. I mean, if or Mother Earth or whatever you want to call it.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, I agree, and I think whatever the higher consciousness looks like for us, I don't know anyone who thinks and maybe there are people who think that there is no connectivity between all of us in some way or another, whether it
Hmm.
is to a spirit, God, universe, the earth, whatever. I don't
Hmm.
feel like I don't know anyone who doesn't believe in being connected somehow.
Sure.
And I mean, because even I would think that just going through the day, they're interacting with people and doing things like that. So I'm not sure. I haven't heard of it, but probably exists, but I haven't heard of it or anyone who I know that doesn't connect to something.
Sure. Yeah. So what I thought we could do for the second half of this episode is
Mhm,
just talk a little bit more about how we can balance these chakras, what we can use. I wanted to kind of specifically talk about. We kind of talked about crystals last time, so we can mention crystals, but I'd really like to talk about the essential oils that can be helpful for each of these chakras.
mhm.
And I know you know a little bit more about essential oils than I do, so please feel free to to bring in your expertise.
You know I
Um,
do.
so if we start with the root chakra, again, we relate that to the color red, also kind of the browns and the burnt umbers, that sort of thing. Red jaspers is a good uh, crystal for that chakra. Again, we can look at some of the browns, the burnt umber,
I look at it as
yeah,
just earth connection.
and then a good oil, essential oil is cedarwood, and I
Mhm.
find it very, very interesting that the oil is is an oil from a tree, because again, trees are so deeply planted into our earth. I mean, if
Yeah.
you want to talk about something that's grounded, trees are grounded.
They are. What's I think a connection to that is when a tree is not grounded, it falls over, which
Right,
is
right.
what happened in our backyard the other day. But if we are not connected in that way, we fall over. And maybe not literally, but it is our stability, our balancing point. And so that's really true. And some of the other oils that I like to use is the deeper sort of sense. So when I think of deeper, I think of things like cinnamon and maybe even pepper. But I do encourage people not to put these in the sacral area
Yeah,
because they don't belong there. Any of the we call them the strong or the peppery type oils, even if they're not actual pepper, those don't belong in any sensitive tissues. And
yeah.
so, if a person's going to use those, how do you have recommendations on how people apply an oil?
Well, the thing about an oil is that really, I like to recommend that you apply it somewhere that there's thin skin, not sensitive skin, y'all, and like skin that you can see in a bathing suit. Um, except for your face. Don't put it on your face either. Well, I like to put it on my temples. I like to put it behind my ears, kind of those same pulse points where you might put perfume.
Sure.
I know that a lot of people recommend putting it on your feet,
Mhm.
and that's a good place to put it. A lot of these oils, particularly those associated with the root chakra, are very, very strong, and I
Mhm.
recommend using them with a carrier oil, because you don't want your skin burned just because you put a really strong oil on it.
Yeah.
Plus, it makes the oil go further, so it's actually a win-win.
Yeah, and, a lot of people will find that in the first few applications, they may find more tenderness with the oils, and, most oils I can apply directly to my skin, but I always encourage people to try it with a carrier first because it can be really uncomfortable and can literally do a burn. I mean, you have to
Yeah,
put a lot on, I think, usually. I don't if I put them on my feet, I do it at night because I don't then wanna stand up and then have it all come off on my carpet or something.
right, right. Yeah,
But, yeah, I agree that those are important things, and also remembering as a caution with this, when you do apply the strong oils well, any oils really afterwards, you, are best served to wash your hands very carefully
with soap
because
and water.
right, one might forget and rub an eye or then use it around some sensitive tissues. So just as a caveat, please make sure you wash your hands after you apply essential oils of any kind, really.
Yes, and make sure you do it with soap and water, because water will not wash away oils. Hence the
Right.
popular saying, "Water and oil don't mix."
That's correct. That's correct. Exactly. So that's your public service announcement for the day. Because trust me,
Um,
you do it once and it will be a memory you will not forget.
yeah, no kidding. Um,
Actually, I have a funny one about that real quick.
sure.
Your sister Liberty has in history made soaps, and she is doing it
Mhm.
again, I believe.
Uh-huh.
But, when she first started, she had put some peppermint oil, which is a strong oil, into her soap, and she said, "Here, try this." And I did, and there was too much peppermint. Just leave it at that. It was very brisk, and I did tell her it was a little much, so when using oils, start low, and then you can add, but be a little careful with application. Also, I will recommend to my clients if they don't want to apply it, to diffuse it,
Yeah,
and that can be a
yeah,
good way to do it, and honestly, you can just open the bottle and sniff if you
yep,
want.
that's
So
true.
mhm.
One thing else I would like to point out, that I find important is, okay, really be clear about this actually. I Essential oils are oils that are derived from plants, and they should be 100% oil of that plant. Now there are
Yes.
some mixes. We're not going to talk about mixes. We're going to talk about essential oils that call themselves one plant. It's important to get actual essential oils and not like a fragranced oil,
Mhm.
because a fragranced oil isn't actually made from that plant, and what we want is the essence of that plant. Now that being said, I'm not saying you have to spend money on the big expensive essential oils. There are plenty of essential oils that are truly essential oils, that are low cost.
Yes.
And
Yeah,
so,
so just do research and make sure
right,
when you're looking at it, look at anything you put in your body or on your body, make sure it's got got the ingredients that you want and isn't full of a lot of chemicals.
yep,
Because like you say, the ones that are perfume are actually very rarely do they have anything other than the scent of whatever it is, and
right,
those actually can
and
be
alcohol.
harmful. Yeah, and those
Yeah,
can actually be harmful to the skin
yeah,
and in if one is breathing the, mist of it, it can
yeah.
also be a problem. So, good reminder.
Yeah. So let's move up to the sacral chakra.
Mhm.
And for this again, the creativity and passion. A good stone for this is a carnelian. And one good oil for this is lang lang.
Mhm.
And I just think one thing I love about lang lang is that it looks sexy. So I love that it's affiliated with the sacral chakra because it's kind of a sexy name.
That's
Do you have
true.
any other oils you recommend for sacral chakra?
Well, for creativity especially, I like some of the citruses because it can assist for focus, and sometimes when we're being creative, we also get to focus. So, sometimes I'll use that as well as a recommendation for the sacral and creativity especially.
I feel like you could also, if you don't like bright, crisp citruses, you could use a bergamot oil.
Sure.
That's a citrus that's kind of more musky and
Mhm.
earthy.
Yeah,
Um, and I like that one when I'm not feeling in the mood for like a lemon or an orange or
sure.
that sort of thing.
Well, and one thing too that some people I feel like with the oil I'm recommending here is patchouli, and people have sometimes a visceral reaction to that. I actually quite like it, but some people don't, and so
I don't.
yeah, and that's the way I find it's like some things there are polar responses. Like when we talk about cilantro, some people say it tastes like dirt, some people like it, but it seems like there aren't very many people in the middle. It's just one or the other, and patchouli is an oil that falls in that, but I believe that's a good one for sacral activation as well, especially on the sensuality side. But if a
Yeah.
person can't stand the smell of it, it isn't probably the best one to go with.
Well, and all my friends covered up their weed smoke smell with patchouli. So I was
Exactly.
surrounded by the smell of weed smoke, or
Yeah.
weed residue and patchouli, and those are ever mixed in my mind, and bleh.
I have a quick story about patchouli.
That's okay.
I was driving when I was working as a case manager, I was doing a lot of driving for patient appointments, as you can probably relate to, and I loved patchouli, and so I had put it on, and it was wintertime, so I had the windows closed in my car, and I had the heater on, and I was speeding, so I got pulled over,
Right.
and I opened my window, and the officer said, he leaned in and he sniffed really hard. I'm like, "What?" And I was raised not around marijuana, so I didn't know the part about covering marijuana with patchouli,
I
and
wasn't raised around marijuana for the
yeah,
record. This was
you
a
were.
school and stuff.
Oh, right. That's hilarious. Point taken. Anyway, and so he was sniffing weird, and I thought, "What is wrong with this guy?" And he said, "Ma'am, do you have any drugs in the car?" And I said, "No. What are you talking about?" And I thought that was weird. And then he said, "Okay." And he stepped away, and I rolled up my window, and he came back with a ticket, which I had earned. I had earned the ticket. I was going too fast. And he again leaned in as far as he could without making it illegal to look around my car to hope he sees something. And he sniffed some more. And he said, "Ma'am, I have to ask you again, are you doing drugs?" I'm like, "No, I don't do drugs." And he said, "Okay." And he couldn't see anything, so he had to let me go. But I went to see my patient and I said, "It was so weird." And he started laughing. And I said, "What?" And he said, "Do you know what people use patchouli for?" And I said, "It smells good." And he said, "No." And he said, "What you did, they cover the smell of marijuana because it's stronger." And I'm like, "Oh." So then I realized why he was doing what he did, but I thought he was just a weirdo. But anyway, so in that moment, my sacral chakra was probably acting fine.
That's funny.
It was funny. And also the fact that I was so clueless about what the heck he was doing. Anyway, carry on.
All right, let's move on to the solar plexus chakra. That's, of course, we told you in the crystal healing thing that a good crystal for that is yellow. Sorry, the color is yellow. The good crystal is citrine.
Mhm,
Um, and a good oil for that is lemon essential oil.
mhm.
Again, you could also use just an orange essential oil, lemon
Lemongrass can be good.
lemongrass.
Mhm.
I feel like frankincense can be used here.
I hadn't considered frankincense for that, because to me, frankincense is more of a grounding oil, but I'd have to look into that. I believe about oils, that while it's good to connect them to certain types of things, if in a morning I am feeling a certain way and all of a sudden I know I need to use cinnamon, I don't necessarily think about why,
Yeah,
it's just what I go to. And so
yeah,
in some ways, cinnamon, because it's red, it could be a heart chakra, but also I would use it more as a root chakra. But it's
sure.
so yeah, frankincense, sure. It's a good healing one, so I don't see why not.
And then we move up, of course, to the heart chakra. And that usually there's a green or pink associated with the heart chakra.
Mhm.
And often I've seen a watermelon colored stone, and I just forgot the name of it.
Watermelon tourmaline.
Watermelon tourmaline, thank you.
Mhm.
And that's often used for the heart chakra because it
Mhm.
encompasses both the green and the pink.
Mhm.
However, you can use the rose gold. You can use uh,
Rose quartz.
that's what I meant.
Mhm.
You can use a rose quartz. I mean, I guess you could use rose gold, but that's neither a
Sure.
stone nor an oil. But yeah, you can use like a tree agate, and then a good essential oil for this one is rose. Now, rose is my mother's favorite scent in all the
Mm.
land,
Mhm.
and so this is another one of those where I've just had simply too much of it,
Yeah.
and I don't like rose.
Yeah, I mean, even though it's called blue, but blue tansy is one that I could see using for that because it has a similar feel. And some oils are mixed together to create an overall feeling, and blue tansy is mixed in a few of the things that can be used for that.
Yeah.
But true. I mean, I have a similar reaction to rose, not because I've smelled it too much, but it's just a little too much for me. That's one of those times, though, that it can work for being cut with, say, coconut oil or another carrier oil. I do
Yeah.
like coconut oil a lot because it doesn't tend to stain like olive oil. Some people think that's a good oil, but because of its color, it can stain. And coconut oil is believed to have healing properties on its own as well.
So is
Almond,
well,
I
almond
mean,
is,
avocado too.
avocado is, there's one that Liberty loves to use, and I can't think of it right now.
There's jojoba.
But yeah, there's jojoba.
Yeah.
But another oil I think you could use is a jasmine. I
Mhm.
think a jasmine oil is good for the heart chakra.
Sure.
And in the interest of time, it sometimes bothers me when people do this. Well, actually, I don't even know if it bothers me. It interests me and amuses me when we get a good full time given to the first 3, and then we have to rush through the last 4, so sorry, y'all. But we'll move to the throat chakra, and, that again is communication and expression, the color blue. I said in the crystal healing, episode that a turquoise is a good stone for that. Blue lace agate is another good stone for that.
Mhm,
Lapis lazuli, um, sodalite. There are a lot of good blue stones, in my humble opinion. And then
mhm.
a good oil for that is peppermint.
Yes. Mhm.
So, and I think you could probably use wintergreen for that as well.
Yeah, again, being very strong oils. Definitely keep your fingers wash them carefully after that and well, your whole hand, and, keep your fingers away from your eyes even after you've washed your hands because it could be quite abrupt. And, people just as also part of our PSA, if you do get the oils in your eye, the recommendation by most people is to put a coconut oil near your eye, like in the corner of your eye and let it sort of soak in, but, just be really careful with those strong oils. They're great for that though, and if you have
Mhm.
congestion, peppermint oil on your thumb, putting it up on the roof of the mouth, take an oil drop or 2 on your thumb and put it on the roof of your mouth, clear sinuses, but just 1 drop because again, it's a strong oil.
Yeah. I,
If it's edible, essential oil, as long as it's
good
something
grade. Yeah.
grade, yeah.
And you can't see it, but I'm nodding my head. I
Good,
agree.
good job, good job. And then what's next?
And then next we have the third eye chakra, again, intuition and insight. The color that typically goes with the third eye is indigo. I've also heard that, dark blue works for
Mhm,
it. Um, but it's kind of a cross between purple and blue. And then a good oil for that is clary sage.
mhm, mhm. Yeah.
So
Yeah, and again, there's other oils that work, but those are some of the best, and when I spoke of blue tansy before, some p people will use it for a third eye as well,
yeah.
and, and that's a nice thing too is these oils can be flexible, and also, if I happen to think I have a problem with my solar plexus, so I use one oil, I'm not gonna be wrong, and
Yeah.
it's like a lot of these things, it's not like it breaks us, and
Right. Right.
maybe that's we really get to have, maybe that's my intuition working, and,
Sure.
but that's the nice thing about things like this, that it won't break us, and so that's awesome, and now for the
And
crown.
now, now, for the crown chakra. And again, spiritual connection. And this is usually a violet or a white.
Mhm,
Um, and the clear quartz is definitely the most associated crystal with the crown chakra that I'm aware of.
mhm,
Also, another good crystal for this is selenite. Selenite is like literal pieces of God.
wow,
God energy. I don't believe in God, but
mhm,
it like selenite is like, and it comes apart so easily. It's so fragile. To me, that's one of the best crystals for the crown chakra as well. And
mhm,
then a good oil for the crown chakra is lavender.
mhm.
Unfortunately for me, lavender also falls in that I've had it too much bucket. And
Right,
so I actually use something like a sweet orange or what's calming to me. I really like bergamot. Actually, then that's not the same area. But again, like
mhm.
Andrew was saying, if that's what you feel like, if that's what is right for that moment, then so be it. So
Yeah, and I love using the oils in association with the other things, and one of the things that I've done with some of my clients, if I ask them, "Do you have any essential oils or do you have any crystals?" and they say no to those things, then I often will recommend a color for them to wear. So, like, today I have green on and today you have it looks like a kind of a burgundy?
yeah, yeah, kind of, yeah.
Yeah. And so those colors, actually just looking at them can work, and then as we've talked about, other things like frequencies and stuff are related to different chakras, and using things like crystal bowls and the Tibetan bowls and bells, they're often, set at a frequency that applies to those chakras. So I
Hmm.
think that's cool that we can approach it in so many different ways.
Yeah, I agree. And I remembered I like vanilla for my crown chakra, and I like white
Okay.
orchid, white
Orc
orchid.
oh, okay, no, I haven't used that.
Yeah,
Huh,
I
I've never
recommend
used
it. You
or
should.
hmm, I'll have to look for it. Well, and just to as a sort of a recap for these things, the reason we're mentioning these and the oils and the stones is that it has been believed for probably ever
Yeah,
that the energy centers are the key to us. And there are many, many groups of people that believe that as soon as our chakras are in tune or in balance, if you will, then the rest of us has to follow. And and some people believe in other things like the chi or the different kinds of flows, but I really feel like it all comes from the same source. And so I think that that makes it so that these things will apply even if a person doesn't believe in chakras, because some people, if they can't see it, they don't believe it, right? I mean, how
yeah,
could that
yeah,
be? Is it
for
there?
sure.
And some people make it super literal, like, well, I see my chakra and it's doing this. And I have energetically felt that my chakras were out of balance, so that maybe they were feeling rough and things like that. But it's not like if someone is opened up, I can't see their chakra.
Right.
It's not
You're
like
not
a
going to see
button.
it in surgery.
No, do not attempt this. But it is one of the things that it's like air. We can't see it. I mean, we can see it blow, we can feel it blowing, but we still, unless it has something in it, we can't see it, but it's still there. Gravity, we can't see per se, but we're stuck to the earth. And
Right.
if you something tips over, gravity assists. There it is, it's falling. But
Right.
I feel like it's important to explain these things and tell me what you think about it. But I like to explain these things to give people and our audience an opportunity to see that there's so many different ways of looking at things, and there's so many ways that we can bring ourselves into alignment and into health. Because to me, when we're sick, especially, it can be called dis-ease, because some part of our body is out of balance, so it's out of ease. And what do you think about the chakras and why they're important to us, Crystal?
I just think that, I mean, I don't know that we will ever have 100% balanced chakras. Maybe we
Mhm.
will, I don't know. But I do think that I think I see them really as kind of an awesome guide for healing ourselves and, improving our lives.
Mhm.
Um, I, it just kind of gives you somewhere to start, honestly.
Sure.
And of course, just to reiterate, uh, Andrea and I are nurses, and we absolutely also advocate for Western medicine. And don't stop any prescriptions without talking to your doctor.
These are adjunct things that we feel like people could try, and they are, in our opinion, uh, safe to do. But as Crystal says, if you're in active treatment and you want to use oils or something like that, if you're active treating something, it's a good idea to ask your healthcare provider. I know when I was having my cancer experience, my provider asked me not to use my essential oils during the week of chemotherapy, because he didn't know what they did completely. He knew that they did stuff, but he didn't know what exactly, and he didn't want the chemotherapy to be
Less
weaker.
effective. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and so if you are in active treatment or something, then please get healthcare provider approval of this sort of thing. It's just some other ways of looking at healing that can assist people.
So, um, as always, if you have questions or if you have stories that you want to tell us, please stop by our website.
Yeah,
And
and another fascinating topic. Thanks for bringing your insight on this, Crystal.
you bet, my pleasure. Thanks for having this conversation with me. And we are also on Facebook if you want to hang out there. We're on YouTube, where you're probably listening to this if it's not on Spotify. So thanks for being there, and we appreciate your support.
All right, take care.
All right, you too. Bye, y'all.
We'd love to hear from our listeners. To leave a comment, share a story, or ask a question, email us at listeners@mysticdetectives.com. You can also find out about our Patreon and other interesting things going on at our website, mysticdetectives.com. As always, we invite you to subscribe, share, and leave reviews to support the podcast. Thank you for listening. We'll see you next week. Stay curious.
And keep exploring.